Hey everyone, have you gone AI shopping yet? Hey, it's the latest thing. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Welcome to our live Techstrong Gang. For those of you who haven't had the chance to log in or jump in since the first of the year, we've moved to our live format. So we like it. It's I think it's snappier. It's more on time. It is live TV or live video, so bear with us if anything happens, but it's a good time. We've got a great panel for today's live Techstrong Gang. Let me introduce you to Chris Blask, Kate Scarcella, Sid Nag. Sid, I always mispronounce your last name. Is Nag the right?
No, that's fine.
Not, okay. And then, of course, we've got Dan O and Mike Vizard. Lady and gentlemen, welcome. So, Mike, AI shopping, right? I remember when e-commerce was the buzzword. Is this a whole new wave, a whole new generation?
Well, the National Retail Federation conference is this week in New York, so everybody was talking about this particular initiative because Google launched it. They've been talking a little bit about AI shopping before, but now they've introduced this protocol with help from Walmart, and Target's behind this. Not Target. Target is behind this, and a bunch of other folks, including Shopify, which is probably their most important player in that set. But it kind of says that, we're all going to let AI agents do shopping on our behalf. I don't know how much agency we want to give an AI agent. I'm a little cautious when I give my money to anybody that they're going to spend on my behalf. And of course, I'm sure there are a million security implications. But Chris, what's your take on this? What do you think? And are we going to let AI agents just go to the store first?
Well, it depends if it's your AI agent or somebody else's, right? Like a lot of things, we're changing. We're going from a advertising to intent to a transaction. I'm going to put something out there. I'm going to see it. I'm going to want to buy it. And I'm going to buy it. Now we're getting into this is Disney World 1971, the world of the future where your fridge knows what you want and orders things for you. So we're seeing the big players trying to navigate, be that broker in the middle. And, for my opinion, I think we'll do a lot of that. I think we're actually moving in a different direction. I think it's more when your fridge really is ordering for you. If it's being run by the corporation as profiting, the trust level just isn't there. I don't think that's the way agentic AI works at the personal and the household level anyways. So I think we end up in a model, and we're starting to move that way where your fridge is actually yours. You can trust it because it's not being run by an ad agency. But we're in that middle part right now. So this is the layers we see as the big players try to own that broker space where all the transactions will go through them.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where is the AI agent that's going to say no, because, the conversation in my house kind of goes something like this. I go, hey, we should get this. And then my wife looks at me and says, no, we're not getting that because we can't afford it. So
I get Gotti Everett has been having him and Bruce Schneier have been hosting this series of prompt or GTFO challenges. Really, really good people giving short talks. And the first one I gave was on AI that can say no, right? And I said my piece there, and in the chat, someone says, you could just imagine if your AI could say no to you. My response is, just imagine it can't, right? If it can't, if my AI in my house, running my house, in my fridge, is unable to say no, like a lot of these commercial products are, that doesn't lead anywhere happy. So yeah, you've got to be able to trust your agents to say no on your behalf. Otherwise, we're just marketing fodder.
But Mike, because you wanted to buy something extravagant or too much money. To Chris's point about the AI agent working in your fridge, these are staples. The milk's empty. Do I need more milk? Hell yeah. Do I, you know what I mean? How often am I going to say, no, I don't want milk. I need cheese. I need, staples. And so I don't want my AI agent shopping for a leather coat I'm going to buy or something, that's very stylistically dependent. But for staples, for the block and tackling, the food shopping, the same stuff that's on my list every week when I go to the market, man, I take that in a heartbeat. A heartbeat.
Google knows a lot of that about us, right? Google's, if they've got the identity side of this solved, everybody's got a Gmail account, they've got years worth of your transaction history. Every receipt's going to your inbox. They've got the payment infrastructure with Google Pay. To me, this really reinforces their moats around search, around commerce, advertising. I think this is really allowing them to kind of take it that last mile where they've done the search, they've done the advertising pieces historically. Now they're really letting you kind of go all the way through. I like that they're again leading, on kind of open source, infrastructure as well here. Donating, kind of the code out to the community. They got a great set of partners on the retail side: Walmart, Target, Shopify. I think this is a pretty big deal. I think this is going to take a little while to get people comfortable with, but as long as you've still got your finger on the button on whether you're actually agreeing to buy this or not, I think they can really personalize this and make some strong recommendations and to Alan's point, kind of automate a lot of the mundane that a lot of us don't have to deal with. Kind of the refreshing of the staples in the pantry every week, right? Those sort of tasks.
Yeah. I like the fact that Google is actually proposing a standard to do these things, right, with the UCP. Because honestly, what also caught my attention as a side note is that Amazon was not part of this protocol development or this consortium, right, which is the biggest e-commerce vendor that you have in the market. But I like the fact that UCP is defining an open standard where you can do the whole entire commerce journey seamlessly, right? So in terms of your payment schemes, your credits, your shipping information, just reducing the whole friction in the cart experience, right? I think that's positive. What I don't like is the fact that it may turn out to be a cabal of a few people who are going to control the e-commerce space, right? It's like the oil companies getting together and fixing prices at the pump, right? How you don't see price difference in the pump go from one gas company to another. So I'm worried that they could potentially retain, drive control of pricing, fulfillment, and the whole relationship experience and share information. The whole issues around privacy and all of that comes into mind for me, right? So there are good things around the UCP concept. There are many negatives that I think we should be worried about.
Well, so I'm not clear how this will actually work, because let's think this through for a minute. Let's say that you have an AI agent as a seller and it's designed to sell something at the best price possible for you. And I have an AI agent as a buyer, and I'm going to buy something. I'm going to program that AI agent to go buy that thing at the lowest price possible. Where will these AI agents negotiate with each other, and won't they eventually just cancel each other out and call us for help?
Maybe, right? But what Dan and Alan said, right? Alan, we think we can trust our fridge to buy milk for us, but to Dan's point, if Google has, and let's say it out loud, these big companies know more about us than we are comfortable with now, but they are still not capable of making the decision on what kind of milk I'm going to buy, because they don't know us well enough. So we had to extend this to the point where we will let arbitrary external sources opaquely hold literally everything about our lives, so we can know what kind of cottage cheese we like to buy. That's not the way it's going to work.
But they already know.
They don't know enough. They don't know enough.
Look, to Sid's point, you know why Amazon isn't in this? Because they already got it. I'm a Whole Foods shopper. Every day, oh my God, darn Amazon Echo thing. Hey, do you need Nancy's probiotic cottage cheese? Because they know that's what I've been buying. The good's on sale, and this is they're competing. The good is on sale. Do you want to get that instead of Nancy's? Is it time for more organic kale? Amazon's doing this with the new Alexa Plus already to a certain extent, but they already have that. But here's the fundamental thing, guys. Dan, you touched on it. Sid, you hit it head on. Chris, you bit around the edges. We're going to have to come to an understanding with Big Brother, with big tech, with AI, whatever, that if we want to reap the total benefits of it, the maximum benefits of it, we're going to have to get comfortable with giving up a little privacy. And maybe you don't want to. I think that's an individual choice. Chris, you may not want them to know that you like organic skim milk, not whole milk. But
from Wisconsin.
But we're going to need, and I'm being facetious. There's bigger implications, but we're going to need to each of us make a decision how much we're willing to trade privacy versus convenience.
Well, yeah, that's always sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this privacy. But more importantly, there's the pricing issue, right? Who is your best agent? It's you, not an agent, right? So I'll give you a simple example, right? The other day, my carbon monoxide detector started to beep, right? So
3 a.m, probably too, right?
Battery change the whole unit, right? So my first reaction was I'll go to Amazon and look at the price of unit. It was $69.99, right? Then I started to look who's actually making this product. So I went to their website and it was $55, right? So Amazon was making almost $14 markup on their product. Now, if you let these guys all form a cabal, whether it's Amazon, Shopify, Walmart, they're going to more or less be in the 69 price range, right? And if the agent is going to just search their respective ecosystems. But the reality is that I can be my own agent, or maybe those vendors have their own agents on their website that give you a lower price. So that's an example where I think these kinds of things end up being a sort of gathering of interested parties that could.
But Sid, let me ask you a question. Does it make a difference whether it's you as your own agent or you have your own personal agent that says, hey, before you buy the Amazon or the Walmart, go on the web and find the lowest price for me? That's an easy task for an agent.
There are those agents already. There's a Capital One, for example, has pop-up.
Yes, Capital One shopping.
Shopping, right? When I go somewhere to shop. So there are those things already. So there's no reason why each vendor can, like the manufacturer of that carbon monoxide detector can't build its own agent within its own website. And then many of those smaller vendors who manufacture the actual carbon monoxide detectors versus these Amazons of the world who sell them as retail companies could form their own agent sort of consortium and find the best price there, and completely eliminating these guys, because these guys are generally more predatory when it comes to pricing, whether people like it or not, right? I mean, you do get the convenience of shopping one-stop shop, but the prices are not always the best, right? That's my worry. So anyway.
I think for me, when I read these stories, it made me think of the 1984 Apple commercial, that famous one, right, where you have the runner throwing the hammer. And the reason I say that is because in 1984, Apple showed us what it looked like to break this monoculture. And today's standards like UCP are doing the same thing, not by controlling choice, but by finally making individual choice possible at scale. So for me, personalization here isn't creepy. It's respectful of time and intent. And as a person who can't match to save my life clothes, like if I had Garanimals that were digitized and they could say,
now you're showing your age with the Garanimals. I'm sorry.
Well, but this is, to all these points, Alan, right? I personally, I am a risk tolerant person. My privacy and security levels are way, wider than a lot of people's. I bought architect structures that everybody can fit in. And okay, what you're saying, to be clear, I want these automated systems to show me the ads that I care about because they know me well enough. However, my point right now is that the only way to get there in the past has been to let some huge corporation hoover up all my information, because locally I can't do that. Now we can. And in fact, we can't have them, have Google and Amazon know, say, 1,000 times more about each of us. What we actually know about ourselves, they couldn't even do it. It wouldn't run. Now we need to take it back and have our information locally, and we can do this. I can have an AI running here. I do. That acts on my behalf, knows me well enough, and I don't have to give all my information to Amazon. So that's where we're going. In the meantime, I think all these big companies will do really well. They'll own that broker level in the middle, but the value they're adding by knowing us better than we know ourselves is going away.
Hey, I wanted to shout out that comment that just went by, because it also says that there's not enough transparency to what's going on, because a lot of this stuff is already happening behind the scenes, and there is a massive level of disruption. And to Sid's point, you know, a lot of these companies exist on that margin. And if people are just going to go buy direct from the manufacturer, well, what will become of those Amazons and ecosystems? Because the whole ecosystem will just get flattened, right? I'll buy direct.
Yeah, no, I agree. But you know that in that particular example, when you buy stuff from Amazon and Amazon's making $14 on it, no, Amazon's probably not making $14 on it. Probably there's a third-party seller who's selling through Amazon and paying Amazon for fulfillment or warehousing, and they're splitting that or what have you.
Yeah.
But you know, you're paying for the convenience.
In the market, right, Alan? And it feels like this agentic way could actually drive a lot more efficiency, right? When you've got
I think so. And that's
agents,
and who wins?
Looking for best price.
And Dan, who wins on that? We do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think one of the good things about this, it's very much like what HTTP did for the web, right? It's a shared framework. The whole idea of UCP is kind of analogous for shopping, like what HTTP did to standardize the web experience. So UCP essentially enables retailers and payment providers to plug into an AI-based shopping ecosystem with less engineering overhead, more flexibility. So others can plug in too. It doesn't preclude others to plug in, but there's still a worry about whether these big guys are going to do something predatory, right? But I like the standardization and the UCP protocol, the shared framework. That's a positive, right?
Hey, we're about out of time for this. I'm going to take prerogative to say the last word. If you look at the history of e-commerce, there was a time where I thought, like my wife, for instance, would never buy clothing online because she's one of these touchy-feely types who she wants to feel the material. She has to see how it looks on her. Does it fit right? You know, I just buy it by size. But lo and behold, my wife does a lot of shopping online. And Kate, to your point, I think all of us always wanted a personal shopper to help with the animal color coding and everything, right? So lead follower, get out of the way, but AI commerce, AI shopping's coming and it's here. Let's move on though to our next subject, if you don't mind. It's AI coding in 2026. I thought AI coding was so 2025. Mike, what's the story?
Well, the Harvard and Meta are working on something they're calling Confucius. And the idea here is that the AI agent will be smarter and will, instead of just working on the coding, will start doing all the scaffolding and a lot of the other scut work that developers hate. And Sid, I'd like to get your opinion about, well, what do you think is the current state of AI coding? I think we keep talking about AI as if it's a constant, but it seems like we're just rapidly advancing. In fact, I'm having a hard time figuring out, well, do we standardize on tools today, or we just rip and replace them now when the next great advance comes in about 2 months from now?
Yeah, I think the key word there is scaffolding, right? I mean, I think the whole Meta, what's it, Confucius code agent, is that what they're calling it? Yeah, it really kind of demonstrates how scaffolding with things like, or for an agent, right? Things like memory management, context protocols, execution structures, and data structures, and all of that can really materially affect the ability to operate reliably in a real world code base, right? Because enterprises are not really ready in many cases. So it underscores the enterprise readiness for agentic applications, right? Which really demands, rigor and not just bigger models. I talk about this a little bit in one of my LinkedIn posts around vibe coding, and then the whole idea of, rational, reasonable learning, right? Reliable learning, right? So I think when you get into writing code at the production grade, the split between what the agent perceives what needs to be done by that particular code base versus what humans observe, right? In terms of the user, the UX, CX, and the developer experience highlights really the emerging needs for clear observability. So things like, how do I make sure that a code base written by an agent is reliable? Can I track the metrics of its performance, right? When do I know it's going to go into an infinite loop, right? What is it going to cost in terms of, will it bring my iPhone down, right? Will it crash? Will that application crash? So things like that, I think, are really key. So that's what this whole Confucius code agent announcement by Meta is talking about. So it's really all about bringing the rigor, reliability, the actual user experience versus making it what we've been doing so far, which is a geeky experience of using all these technologies from Google and Microsoft and others to develop code. So the idea is code development is not the end all be all. It's the actual experience, the measurement metrics of the particular performance of the code base, the application, the user experience, all of that. So I think that's really the key here.
Yeah,
Kate, go ahead. Well, Kate, let's call on Kate. I want to get her in here for a minute. Kate, what's your sense of the maturity of these tools right now? I mean, how much are you kind of looking at this and saying this is now, or is this something you're gonna keep an eye on but not use every day? I mean, where are you in your thoughts on AI coding and what's going on with all this stuff?
Well, personally, right off, to answer your question, I'm for it. I'm embracing it fully. What I like, and actually what I will say that I love, is that with cybersecurity, one of the things that we always asked in the very, very beginning, in the early 2000s, is who's coming in to your enterprise? What are they doing once they're there, and how quickly can you prove it? And what I saw with this overall block and the articles that we're looking at, from application to network, at first when I was reading the network and Shield, I sort of laughed to myself because I always bring in the network people to slow down the app people, right? That's something that we always saw. And but wow, 1Password, right? I mean, good for them. They were out there at Field Tech Day in October, and good for them. I mean, they actually delivered very quickly on something that they were just talking about. So, so again, what I see from an architecture standpoint, you have your identity, you have your network, you have your app. I mean, so to your question, I'm embracing it. I'm loving it, and let's go, man. Let's buckle up.
Let me bring everybody up to speed because you mentioned Shield, which we haven't introduced yet. But Palo Alto Networks has a framework called Shield Out, which is helping people figure out how to use AI coding safely. And then while we're at it, we're also seeing some advances on the security side with 1Password is working with Cursor to help protect secrets when you're using these AI coding tools. So there's a lot of rapid advances coming together at the same time. I guess the one thing I'm trying to figure out, Alan, though, is this is a highly competitive space. So how do used to be you could build an entire company like Microsoft on the loyalty of developers. But I guess my question is, are developers just going to be, moving from one tool to the next and there is no loyalty anymore?
I don't know if there ever really, truly was loyalty. There was lock-in. And I think everyone wants to avoid lock-in. But a couple of observations here. I can't be the only one who's thinking to myself, when this Confucius tool tells me what it's doing or what it says, do I say Confucius says? I just had to mention, but seriously, Meta, is this what the billions of dollars that Zuck has spent? Is this the payoff for it here? Because this is the first time I think we're discussing Meta in terms of an AI tool set or something. And
it's Meta doing experiments on anthropic models too. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
I think we did talk about a Meta acquisition, I think, while you were away last week. But Meta's clearly becoming a bigger player. I don't know how they're.
Well, they should, for the amount of money spent. You would think so, and they are one of the giants. Chris, you got your hand raised, and I go ahead, bud.
Yeah. So in this last year, in fact, since May of last year, I haven't done a lot of coding in a long time, and I have generated, produced tens of software stacks with tens of thousands of files, millions of lines. Shout out to Ashraf, our CTO, and millions and millions of documents, right? And we learned a couple of things. I've pushed all these coding tools to their limits and past them. And A, they're fantastic. B, I wouldn't trust any of them. C, they're missing also. We're like a lot of my commentary, we're pushing in certain directions where you can't get there from here, right? So, but what I'm finding really interesting about all that is because we'll work all that out. And right now, the documentation is more interesting than the code. I really don't care anymore what the code is. Our focus more is on documenting the system so that you can express that in whatever code is generated by whatever coding platform you're using. Whether it's literally the programming language don't care. The models don't care. As long as it matches the intent, we can now generate code and express code. One little piece we wrote the other day based on one of our folks' experience who did a lot of this as a younger person. Cracking software licenses is dead. No one cares. I will just generate your application easier than I'm going to crack your licensing scheme. What does that even mean? Right. So yeah, the coding tools are going exactly where they're looking like. Writing code, people still need to do this, but that's not how it works anymore.
Yeah.
What is
And
your
What is
Chris
meta?
is right on.
Go ahead.
I think.
Yeah.
Chris, I totally agree with you. And, and right now we also talk about the speed of it, right? Which becomes so important when we're addressing, starting up businesses and stuff. We want speed. At the end of the day, give me speed.
I got to tell you something. Today's Tuesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Most of us know that. But tomorrow is also Predict 2026. And we've got virtually almost the entire Futurum analyst team presenting at Predict tomorrow. A couple of sessions there that are right on here. One is Mitchell Ashley's session, kind of on the future of coding and stuff like that. Nick Patience, actually Daniel Newman's talked about this as well. Look, what a great time for developers. What a great time to be a developer. You've got so many options, so much greenfield in front of you, so much runway in front of you. And you don't have to be locked in. And you have, all of this. And that's professional developers. What about the rest of us, right? Chris, you don't consider yourself a professional developer, but yet we can contribute. Dan, no, you're not a professional developer, but we all are tingling around here. The important thing is that we can't think of just being a developer as someone who writes the code. That's the message. I don't want to give it all away. Come to Predict tomorrow. You can go to predict2026.com and register for it right now. But the key is tomorrow's developers aren't necessarily people writing code. They're managing the writing of code, whether it's vibe coding or some other agentic processes. That's the job of tomorrow that we're going to call a developer. And it's wide open for anyone out there who wants to be a developer. This is probably the greatest learning tool in the history. I was talking again on Predict 2026. Daniel Newman is going to talk about how he became a nuclear fusion expert in a month. Right? Think about that.
I love it.
Think about that. So go to Predict 2026. But if you want to be a developer, learn how to develop, learn how to vibe code, learn how to use AI, learn how to be the director of the code, not the person who necessarily writes the code.
I think what Palo Alto is doing is spot on, because vibe coding, I know it's highly hyped today, but there's a serious risk of insecure code and malicious prompt injection, right? So that's all the more reason you need things like Shield to do things like separation of duties, human in the loop reviews, and input-output validation. And the security constructs that Vibe injects should not by any means break the traditional security development controls. And so therefore, all this is cool, vibe coding, all of that cool, but you just have to have that shield, for lack of a better term, to be that oversight functionality, right? So vibe coding doesn't go asunder. So I think that's a message here.
And I'm glad you brought up Shield because, I know that's the next segment, but it all blurs together, right? And so I've spent the last 6 years focusing on supply chain, right? How would I have a software bill of material that's the inventory of some piece of code that I'm using somewhere? And during that whole conversation, we were driving down from the how do I have one and get it from me to one customer. And my focus has been about how do we do this on scale forever? And we talked this through. And we're literally now, I keep pointing this way, this big machine I have here that writes its own code. They'll write a piece of code, use it, and throw it away. Not generating an SBOM for that. We need to be able to put this in context all the time. And we can now, right? You could just put the rules in, express the adherence to those, and that results in, for example, SBOMs. But the fact that we're without all this, we've been going through this process where folks like me have been looking at how are we developing code right now. Oh, nobody's keeping track of who is handling what code in the CI/CD pipeline. That's probably important, but we got away with it. We're no longer getting away with those things. So again, kudos to Palo Alto and Shield and so forth. But I would argue these are primitives that need to be built into everything all the time, not a special effort. When you're coding things, when your agents are coding things, every bloody thing they do, they leave a receipt. We don't say, hey, maybe in this case, we'll start adding receipts to our process. Build it into everything all the time.
Fair enough. Guys, we're overtime on this one. I got to move us along to our next segment. The quantum imperative. Mike, what do we got?
Well, Congress has decided that regardless of what the president might think, that they're going to start funding research and development projects. The National Quantum Initiative is part of that effort, and it's been on a lapse for the last 2 years. And there's an effort now that seems to have some support from both parties to put some funding into this. I think it was north of $800 million. And
Wow.
that sounds, or it used to sound like a lot of money, but I don't know. Dan, let's start with you, because sometimes I feel like this is the equivalent of grandpa giving you a quarter and telling you to go buy some ice cream. So
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. Yeah, I mean, bureaucracy standing in the way of innovation once again. I think it's interesting. This is kind of a bipartisan, kind of reactivation. Clearly, they thought this was a good idea a few years ago. For whatever reason, they've let it lapse, and now they're going to victory lap as they kind of put back in place what was already kind of working, and everybody had already seemed to agree to. So it gets frustrating at times. I mean, you see Trump calling for $500 billion increase in the defense budget next year. This does feel like pocket change compared to those numbers, and it feels like we keep learning the same lesson over again, right? We did it with semiconductors. We're doing it a little bit with AI right now. Quantum next. It's a lot easier to get ahead and stay ahead than to lose the lead and try to catch up. And with quantum being potentially so groundbreaking, in terms of enabling novel invention and innovation that you couldn't do without that level of compute. That this is the type of thing we want to keep well funded. Build the secure supply chain, build the ecosystem, build the skills that we're going to need as this really becomes real over the next few years here. So. Feels like a no-brainer. Go ahead, approve it. It's a big, small drop in a big bucket.
But you know what? You take your victories where you can get them. I'm happy to see the Congress express a will to actually do something. Yeah, it's not 800 million or 800 billion. It's not a lot of money. 800 million. It's not a lot of money. But I will tell you, these things have a way of like filtering down, trickling down. That's a bad word, but trickling down. Here in Palm Beach County, where we're based in Boca, there's an initiative underway here to make this quantum beach. They're actually wooing a public quantum company right now with like $20 million in tax incentives and abatements and all stuff to move their headquarters here from a higher tax state. Let's be clear. Quantum AI is in many ways the how for a hydrogen bomb you need a nuclear fission bomb as the detonator, if you will. In many ways, AI is that detonator for quantum, right?
Yeah.
Combining those two is a 1 + 1 = 5 equation, and so it's important. We know it's important. And Dan, you're right. It's easier to be ahead than to play catch up. But you got to start somewhere, guys. And quite frankly, something's better than nothing. Maybe this is the first drop in the bucket that starts a cascade that we see, smaller jurisdictions join in. We see private companies, encouraged by this to go spend money and do things. It's important. This is an important. So I'm going to be.
And
the
I
glass
agree.
half full.
Alan, wow, I so much agree with that, right? I mean, let's get back to the two guys in the garage, building, a PC. That's what we're talking about. It's a signal, and it's a signal. So, yeah.
I have a question.
It is, and that's something we lose. That I specifically with AI, especially at the model level and the level we talk a lot about here, the barrier to entry is so high. It's such a big tech bro game.
Yeah.
That it's not the two guys, it's not Hewlett and Packard anymore. It's not Jobs and Woz anymore. It's,
It
you know,
is.
you need $100 billion table stakes, ante up to play in that.
But you don't. And this is, you know, don't get me wrong. We have big clients and big governments, nation states and all that. However, what we're seeing is that you can decouple this. And I've said this, you know, in the Middle East, we have now an entire city getting populated with AI locally running on existing old hardware without anybody's connection to anything. And that is providing business opportunities that have nothing to do with AI or any of this. It's just better, faster, cheaper information systems so that you can get your business done. And I think that's what we're missing. I brought this up in the show because we are who we are. We talk about the $100 billion investment in the big GPU data stack, but it turns out. And, you know, as I say, I love this weekly conversation because I keep remembering the things we said 3 months ago and 6 months ago and so forth. And 3 months ago, 2 months ago, I was arguing these things. Now we're just doing them. And they're going viral. They're just spreading all over the place because if you want to run a pharmacy and have better loss control of your, and I'll add this to this, but we talk so much about the individual rules. The rules that we're seeing developed by, you know, a sovereign AI system we're putting out in the world have to do with humans. Because complying with your technical regulation about that's automated. It's all automated. The only rules and protocols that are interesting to businesses are when you go back to the back of the store, do these 3 things. That's an actual business rule, not if you're HIPAA compliant, fill out form XYZ after ABC process. That's mechanics.
Yeah, I think restoring. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around Quantum Beach. Does this mean like a grain of sand will be in 2 places at the same time, and we can sell that beach property twice?
Not once you realize there's a grain of sand there, right?
I think first and foremost, restoring funding for federal agencies like OSTP, NIST, NSF, and NASA is great. The idea of cutting funding for those agencies for quantum research was a horrible idea. So I applaud that, right? But to the point of the AI connection, you're right, Alan. It's really the trigger, right, that's going to drive quantum. But we should also keep in mind that quantum for AI is not really about, replacing classical AI or GPUs. It's really used. It's really going to be used as a sort of a special accelerator, if I may call it that, specialized accelerator, right? So, realistically, where can quantum really help, right? It's best suited for things like, I'd say, combinatorial optimization, right? Not your classic model training or LLM inferencing. And it also helps in the areas of things like sampling, probabilistic models, and those kinds of things. So there are very specific niche areas where quantum can help drive the AI adoption, and research is needed for those areas to make AI even bigger things. So I'm glad that those agencies are being given the funding back.
Yeah. Science is good.
I would think that the AI winds up kind of being a front end to the back end quantum computer to make it more accessible, so I don't have to know how to.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, as we get into real quantum applications, they're all going to be hybrid. It's going to be that combination of classical, neural networks and AI compute and quantum all coming together, to really enable these early wave of applications. Very little you're going to do in quantum that's going to be done discreetly.
Yeah, no, the pure quantum, I agree. And I think there's going to be a whole learning process there of how do you program that? How do you, how does this go in that tree? How does that go in that tree? How does it come back together? There's going to be just some basic research that hopefully is going on right now, right? But
yeah, didn't really talk much about the participation of the commercial vendors, right? What's the role of folks like IBM, Google, Microsoft, D-Wave, etc. going to be in this? That's an interesting topic we should maybe cover in some form of.
Well, I mean, to me, that's the trickle down, right? As it goes into all these agencies and all these academic institutions, the technology vendors are, really the ones providing hardware and that, kind of early set of experimentation hardware that those agencies and academics are going to be using. So, it feels like there's broad endorsement here. It's like a great area for public-private partnership.
Chris, I think you're on mute.
I'm not really sure where quantum takes us, but I see this sort of threefold. There's Moore's law. We're all used to that. Then we get AI, and we have semantic systems that understand human language, and that it adds a whole nother acceleration of the trajectory. And then we have quantum, which is going to speed things up more. And as a security person, like I said in a previous comment, we have gotten away with not doing things for a long time because we can't and whatever. I think all of those security holes need to go away all at once now, and we add quantum to that, not just more so. But I think we're pushing ourselves one way or another into the kind of systems, I don't know, that may break us out of some of the cliches we've developed in the last decades, last 50 years, because some of those structures are just arbitrary. They weren't really good, but they were what we had in the meantime. But with this sort of power and this sort of speed, I think things will be interesting, at least. We have plenty of time to talk about that.
I'm looking for a quantum-powered AI autonomous robot.
Get it?
That's the triple parlay in DraftKings this week, right?
We'll have to change the way we think, though, because quantum, by definition, in my mind at least, is a lot of things that are happening in parallel, and we're already seeing that with AI. So, a lot of what we built historically was because, our brains thought of things in a sequential fashion. So I just wonder if the way we think about things is just going to fundamentally change because we're trying to mirror nature, which does all kinds of things in parallel. So I'm looking forward to a whole new society, I think.
Well, that's the only thing I can say about quantum is quantum cryptography, really, right? I have this, I can break this big key. My question, and people ask, how do I stop that? My question is, why are you trusting one big key? To your point, Mike, nature doesn't, I'm not alive because every single thing works all the time. We have massive redundancy in all of biology, and we built all these corporate systems on brittle systems.
Yeah. Chris, you're right, Chris. Yeah.
Well, but I'll tell you something, I saw a thing a while back, like when AIs talk to AI, the language they're using, right, is not decipherable necessarily to human language. I really believe that, no, our brains may be hardwired. We're doing things in parallel like that. It's going to be a huge leap, right? It's going to take another stage of evolution. But the AI way of quote unquote thinking, the AI way of problem solving, I think is probably more adaptable to that parallel processing, if you will, that quantum will enable. And so that's why it makes AI better.
Yeah.
Well, we use the word parallax a lot. There's, looking at things from two directions. A lot of the AI problems people talk about, again, it's like the one cryptographic key. I'm like, why are you trusting one? Would you trust one person? No. So yeah, you can build automated systems that take all the advantages of AI and just use the normal human system processing that you would put in a critical infrastructure, for example. And to this point, maybe are happening inside biology because the feedback loops and so forth. But again, we have not, over the last 50 years, we've rushed ahead, built a lot of things that work, but they're brittle and fragile at a lot of individual points. This era, because of AI, and I agree with you, Mike, I think quantum goes that way. I don't really know. But yeah, we obviously we can't get more and more brittle and longer supply chains that all fall apart anytime somebody sneezes.
Yeah, I think quantum goes beyond AI, right? When it comes to the broader impact to humanity, right? It can accelerate scientific discovery and health outcomes, right? So enabling faster drug discovery, more effective treatments, breakthrough in clean energy, batteries, medicine. There's so many applications for quantum that in terms of researching these areas, it has a humongous impact to humanity, right? Which would take classical computing many, many, many years to do, right? So we shouldn't forget that part either when it comes to quantum. So,
Absolutely.
Let's not forget that there are other countries in the world that are investing a lot more in this than we are at the moment.
Well, thankfully, though, as Ellen pointed out, it's something, something. So thank you.
There is. It's the world we live in. But the world we live in says we're out of time for today's Tech Strong Gang, guys. Chris, Kate, Sid, Dano, Mike, thanks. Thank you for joining us. Hey, we had a few more comments say we appreciate them. We're still kind of working out the kinks of incorporating them into the flow. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for TechStrong TV immediately following today's gang. And one more quick plug, Predict 2026. That's 2026.com. Go check it out. It is a tour de force of our Futurum Group's feelings towards 2026. You don't want to miss it. Also, added bonus, RSA conference, their analyst team is giving us their view of what they see big in security in 2026. And I'll be announcing the DevOps dozen winners. So go check it out. Predict 2026 until tomorrow.
And I believe we have a lot of quantum computing stuff coming up this year too, right?
We do have some quantum computing stuff, yes. But worry about that later. Go to predict2026.com. This is Alan Shimel. We're out.